Astronomical winter has begun, but this week will feel anything but winter-like. But there are strong signals that that pattern is about to change. We have all the details next at the Weather Farm. Welcome to the Weather Farm. I'm meteorologist Christopher Hale, and we have a lot to talk about for the weather this coming week across the United States. So we're going to dive right into our forecast. We're going to first start by looking at our jet stream map and the upper air patterns. As we look at the jet stream, we see that we have strong winds with the jet stream over the Pacific Ocean. It's a very Pacific-oriented jet stream, bringing milder weather to most of the United States for this upcoming week. We do see a little Colorado low that starts to break off from that. That's going to eject out across the plains and into the Great Lakes by the time we get to Friday of this week. But that strong wind continue, but it's this next trough that starts to break down that pattern and as we get towards the new year, and that could be the first of several signs we see of a pattern change for our temperatures. We look here at the 850 millibar map, and this is going to show that we're going to have above normal temperatures across most of the United States for this coming week. Out west along the west coast, where we're going to have the heavy rain and snows, we'll expect below normal temperatures. We could even see rain for Southern California as we get to Wednesday and Thursday. Those above normal temperatures could set several record highs as we close out 2024 for the areas east of the Rockies to the East Coast, something we're going to stay on top of here at the Weather Farm. If we look at our weather this week, we do have a Clipper system making its way through the Great Lakes on our Monday. That will go into the Northeast on Tuesday. We have a line of scattered showers down in the southern plains for our Christmas Day and snow across the Rockies. But the big story is out west, where we see continued rains and heavy snows. We could see areas reaching 10 to 15 inches of rain by the time we get to the end of this week. Mountain snows could accumulate up to 6 feet of snow. So let's look at our Monday. As we start off our Monday, again, as I mentioned, we have that snow in the Great Lakes. It's going to be lake effect enhanced by the relatively warmer waters of the Great Lakes this time of year. The low pressure is centered way up in northern Ontario. We have another low across New Mexico. It's not going to bring a lot of precipitation associated with it as it continues to move east, but it could spin up some thunderstorms or heavy rains as we get into our Tuesday. And out west across parts of Washington and Idaho, we have heavy snows in those mountainous ranges, bringing 1 to 2 feet of snow likely for our Monday. As we look at the system in the Great Lakes, we're going to see snow primarily in northern Michigan, but in the southern part of Michigan, heading towards Detroit on our Monday afternoon, we could see some of that rain changing over to a little bit of freezing rain and ice. As that system continues to move east, far northeastern Ohio and northwestern Pennsylvania, you could be impacted with some snowfall amounts on our Monday. In terms of snowfall, we will see the heaviest amounts across northern Michigan, where we could see 3 to 6 inches likely, and across parts of northern Wisconsin near Rhinelander, you could see about 4 inches of snow. As that snow makes its way into northeastern Ohio, a couple inches of snow is likely. Down here across southern Michigan, where the precipitation will be rain and mixed with freezing rain during the day, we see up to a ½ an inch likely. As we look at our Tuesday, that system then moves into the northeast, bringing snow to New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and to Maine for our Christmas Eve. We have snow in the higher elevations of West Virginia. We have a little disturbance off the Carolina coast. It's going to bring a chance of rain there. But that low that moved out of New Mexico into the southern plains is also going to bring a chance of rain across Kansas, Missouri, and Oklahoma. That's going to continue to move east for our Christmas Day. And out west, another atmospheric river system is going to make its way onshore, bringing heavy rains across the west coast. And even for our Christmas Day, we could see rain down in Los Angeles as at the time we get to Tuesday evening. In terms of snowfall for the Northeast, this is where we're going to have any chance of an additional snowfall to give us that chance of a white Christmas. 1 to 2 inches across parts of western Pennsylvania, general 3 to 5 inches across most of upstate New York, spreading into Vermont and New Hampshire. And as we get into Maine, 3 to 6 inches are likely. Across parts of southern Ontario, we could see amounts up to 8 inches of snow likely for our Christmas Eve. Our Christmas Day temperatures are going to be anything but winter-like as we see widespread 50s across the southern half of the United States, even 80s down in far southern Texas. Out west across the mountainous regions, we expect those cooler temperatures, 20s and 30s likely. But where we've seen that snowfall over this past weekend and where we will see the additional snowfall on our Christmas Eve, temperatures will be held down there below freezing in the teens and 20s across our northeast. After putting all of our maps in motion and looking at the precipitation that's going to make its way across the United States, we are going to see the heaviest amounts of rain here across the southern plains, where a general 3 to 5 inches of rain is expected. As we make our way up into the Ohio Valley, amounts near 1 to 2 inches are likely, and across also parts of Missouri, Mississippi, and into Alabama. But again, the main focus is going to be out west, where again, we're going to see widespread areas, 10 to 15 inches of rain. Even as we get into southeastern Washington here, places like Prosser, Washington, you could see 1 to 2 inches of rain by the end of the week. And in terms of snowfall, the heaviest snowfalls are going to fall across the Sierras, the Cascades, the mountains of Idaho into Wyoming, where we're going to see an excess of 12 to 18 inches. In those yellows and those lighter colors, we could see easily 5 to 6 feet of snow. And then our main snowfall is going to happen on Christmas Eve across the Northeast, where again, we'll see a general 3 to 6 inches likely. Other than that, there are not many snowfall chances across the United States for this coming week once we get past Christmas Day. And as we end 2024, we will see, as I mentioned, we saw signs that the pattern could be changing. We're going to see one low that's going to eject out of Colorado, another Colorado low. It's going to eject into the Great Lakes by the time we get to New Year's Eve, spreading snow across the upper peninsula of Michigan into Wisconsin. And ahead of it, we're going to have rain on the front side. And then across the Intermountain West, we could see snowfall. Again, this is still about 8 days away. A lot can change. And 2024 is going to end relatively warm for most of the United States, with 50s and 60s very common across most of the southern half of the United States. But as I mentioned, that pattern change as we saw in the jet stream, that's going to indicate as it starts to lose that direct, strong connection with the Pacific jet, starts to break apart, it's going to signal a pattern change. And we see that colder air sitting right there at the Canadian border. Highs in the Dakotas could be in the low teens for New Year's Eve. We have sub-zero temperatures across parts of Alberta and Saskatchewan as we close out 2024. And so let's look at our temperatures in Alaska. What we're going to see as we get to Christmas Eve is we're going to see the core of the cold across Siberia. But as we move into this weekend, that core is going to move through Alaska. 50 below temperatures will be likely. That's going to move over into the Yukon and to the Nunavut and Northwest Territories. And as the temperatures in Siberia warm and they start approaching 20 degrees above zero, we're going to see that cold air begin to be positioned to make its way and spill down into the United States. So this is one sign that we're seeing that as we flip the calendar into 2025, temperatures warming across Siberia, the cold is spreading into Canada and there's provinces, and it's ready to make its way into the United States. So we're going to look at our 500 millibar map, and for New Year's Day, we see this trough digging. It's going to bring one jab of Arctic air, and we see another more potent one that could tap into that air up in Alaska, make its way across the Central Plains, and make its way east as we get into that first full week of January. So this is a storm that could be the first weekend of 2025, and then this system could tap into that really cold air. Now, granted, it will modify. It won't be 40 or 50 degrees below zero across most of the plains, but we see hints of that pattern change really locking in as we get into our first week of 2025. And we see that here with the WPO, the Western Pacific Oscillation. We see that value going negative after the first of the year, and it's going to stay pretty negative as we go through the first couple of weeks of 2025 as we see it now. The other key item that we're going to see is right before the new year, we start to see the Arctic oscillation going negative. What that means is the Arctic air that's centered up with the Arctic Circle and stays there when the Arctic oscillation is positive, that's going to mean that we're going to start to see some of that being dislodged. And it's going to spill down across the provinces of Canada into the lower 48. And we see that staying negative pretty much through mid-month. This is a long way out, especially as we get into mid-January. It's still almost 4 weeks out. A lot can change in the atmosphere and the synoptic setup here across the lower 48. So we're going to have to continue to watch this. But with the 500 millibar chart, the WPO going negative, and the Arctic oscillation going negative, we feel that there are strong indications that as we begin January, we will see colder than normal temperatures across the eastern half of the United States. And if we can get that southern jet stream bringing moisture into the eastern half of the United States, we could set the stage for some significant snow events. A lot to be determined, a lot to monitor over the next couple of weeks, but something to definitely be watching and keeping an eye out on. We hope you've enjoyed your weather forecast here at the Weather Farm. Stay tuned as we give you the latest forecasts on our Wednesday. We hope you have a great day, and we'll see you soon.